transliteration of alif lam. Okay, I'll say it again. Assalamu alaikum. So now we're back online. Basically, I'll say exactly what we said. So in the group chat, you've got alif lam mim, which is 3 letters, and then you got the transliteration, which is the spelling of alif lam mim. Alif lam fa, lam alif mim, mim ya mim. Now, if you imagine the harakat on them, mashallah, brother Muhammad pointed out, the first meme, the harak on it is a sukoon. And the second meme that's right next to it has a kasra. Because if I read meme, if I just say meme to you, and I say write down the word meme, you will have to write down a meme with a kasra. If I say lam, and what's the harakat on lam, the meme in lam, it has to be a sukoon. So what does this remind you of? Remember what we said about what hukum where there is a sakin and a mutaharrik that comes afterwards? Have we covered this a few weeks ago? What's the name of that hukum? I know it's a tricky question.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, Ustad?
So there's a hukum that we covered in the past where we said if the letter that comes is a mutasakin and the one after it is a mutaharrik in Hafs narration with the pertaining to the strict rules, there is a tajweed hukum that we're allowed to do. I mean, just listen to it. I'll give you a hint. Alif Lam Mim.
Is it idgham muslain or is it not?
Perfect. Jazakallah khair. Mashallah, brother Muhammad is spot on with this one. The idgham of the likes or the mithlain. What does the likes mean? Now, if you look back if you break down, like we said, alif lam mim into its spelling, which is the 9 letters, between lam and mim, lam is written from a phonetic sense, an audio sense, with a mim sakin. And mim is a mim mutaharrika. And the rule pertaining to things, we said the hint in Hafs and Asim, is that you're going to face a letter. If it's mithlain, it means it's exactly identical. It's from the same makhraj and the same sifa. So it means if the letter has the same makhraj as the second letter after it, and it has the same sifa and the characteristic of the one after it, we do idgham. Best example we have, أينما تكونوا يدرككم الموت. You don't say يدرككم الموت. You just say يدرككم الموت. And you just merge them together. And the ruling for this is مثلين. متقاربين متجانسين is when the letters are not identical, but they're close enough. You know, when the letters are they're not exactly the same, but they're very close in terms of the makhraj, for example. So that's why, because we do this idgham, it makes it heavy. And the biggest hint is that shadda, tasim, and we said tasim, mim. Other ones, that's what we mean about heavy and light compulsory mad. It's not talking about mufakham and musaqqal, mufakham and muraqqaq that we covered at the beginning of Tajweed. Here, this is musaqqal and mukhaffaf. So, musaqqal means it is very hard, or let's just say difficult to let out, while mukhaffaf means it's very clean, crisp, and easy to say the mad without any taklif. Noon, you just go through it. Kaf ya hay ya ayn sad. When you look at it there, again, that's another example of idgham. So if there is something along those lines, if you are not sure about if it's a heavier or a light one, break down every single letter, put the spelling of each letter in Arabic side by side, and then try to read it as if you're reading the Quran. And if you see 2 letters are exactly the same and you're getting hints, for example, that you have to say it with an idgham, chances are it is very heavy. So any questions about this definition? So I hope I answered your questions. So we're pretty clear about what is a kalimi mukhaffaf and a kalimi musaqqal.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Yo, Ustad, this heavy one here, the
Yep.
muthaqqal, is ta, sin, mim. Those are the 3 letters, is it?
Yeah. So here, because when you look at it, it's the same thing. You've got 2 memes next to each other. When you think about it, it's when you write it down. Oh, I see what he's done here. He's actually written it down. Ta, sin, mim, and the Quran is about 3 letters. But here he's expanded it to help illustrate to you that, oh yeah, there is a sort of idgham that's going on. So yeah, ta, sin, mim. When you read it, you say ta, sin, and then you got mim. And the idgham, remember this, the idgham has to be 2 harakat long. Just like how, for example, in dalin. Now, dalin, what you don't see in dalin is if I had to break down that, people say, brother, but there's a shadda on the lam. How is this mutaqqal or mukhaffaf? Like, think of it this way. The lam with a shadda, it actually means it's 2 lams. And Arabs, the tradition of the Arabs is that there's 2 letters following each other. One is a silent and one is a mutaharrik. They always merge them together. So just remember, if it has an idgham in it, whether it's a word or a letter, it's automatically heavy. Kalimi is talking about a word. Harfi is referring to the letters. وحروف مقطعة, as you said.
كل هذا واضح والحمد لله. But just the question is, sin is spelled sin ya noon, isn't it?
Yes. Now, sin, if you break down sin, it's probably not the best example written in the book. That's why I highly encourage you to take a notebook and write it down. Sin is written as, if I transliterate sin into this 3-letter form, it's sin ya noon.
Yeah. So
Yes.
why are we merging it into the meme when it's a noon?
It's an idgham, ya Sheikh.
Yeah, that's pretty much the answer.
What is it?
Because the noon is sakin.
Oh, Fadl Muhammad, yeah, explain it.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but
No, it's all right. Explain it. Feel free, go ahead.
because it's the sin ending in noon, right? Which is sakin, noon sakin. And then coming after it is a meme. So that's idgham. Idgham bighunna.
Right, okay. So we're just applying the rules.
And then the meme is starting with a ma. So that's 2 memes coming after each other. That's why you make the shadda. That's why it's mutaqqal, heavy. And then the noon completely disappeared because it's been udghimat into the meme. So that's you don't say tasim. Yeah, you say tasim before you get to the meme. Before you get to the noon, then you're on to the meme already. Tasim. I think that's what it.
Yeah, and that's what happens because you apply the rules of ahkam nun sakina. It's not a meme in this case because it's a meme and a meme. We said it's identical. That's why alif lam mim you have it there. With the other cases, same thing with kaf haya ayn sin qaf. Oh no. Now, when you look at it, we'll cover this later on in the book because I would like to cover through it. You read ayn. Oh, hold on, let me start again. كاف ها يا عين صاد. I'm rushing here. I don't have the right weighting. It's supposed to all be 6 harakat. I noticed in the ayn, I said the ayn and then I did the ikhfa. Ayn qa. Reason being is that obviously this hukum here, if you break it down, just like how we did with alif lam mim. Alif lam mim, you break down the alif in 3 letters, lam in 3 letters, mim in 3 letters. You do the same thing for kaf ya ha ayn sad. You look at it and go, oh, hang on. The next one is basically a hukum of ikhfa. So this is basically, when you think about this exercise, although it's a simple exercise, this is compulsory mad. It actually, in order for you to understand the definition of what a compulsory mad is when the sheikh tests you, you need to have all your other ahkam sorted. You need to know the 15 letters of ikhfa. You need to know the letters of idgham. You need to know the advanced idgham. We said the close, the مثنين, and متقاربين, and know the definitions between them. And that's what's really tricky about understanding it. So to get an easy ijaza just for iqra or recitation, you can just say, oh, compulsory mad, 6 harakat. But to actually get the proper iqra, and then the full license, you need to be able to break it down like that. So I do apologize. So I'm not going to try to spend too much time on it, but this is covering it briefly. I hope it's kind of like explained it to everybody.
Yes, alhamdulillah, I get it. Jazakallah khair.
Okay, inshallah, bismillah. We'll probably start now by the reading. We'll probably, I think it'll be easier to start now with the duration of the compulsory mad. Oh, we did that last week, didn't we? We'll start
Yeah, we did.
We'll start with the separate letters in the Book of Allah. Anybody feel free to grab it. You know what? I'll probably start reciting. I'll probably start reading. It's been a while. And you guys can stop me if you have any questions, if that's all good. You all good?
Khair, inshallah.
Ya Allah, bismillah ar-Rahman. The separate letters in the Book of Allah. Allah the Great and Almighty began 29 surahs of the glorious Quran with separate letters, or huruf muqatta'a, the meaning of which is only known to Allah. As to our share of them, it is the belief that they are Allah's words, reciting them, we believe in reciting them as they were revealed. And the number of the letters in the glorious Quran, here we're talking about the 14 letters of huruf muqatta'a. In Arabic, there's 29 letters that we've covered earlier. We've covered the Arabic letters, half of which are huruf muqatta'a. Technically, the glorious Quran has 14 gathered in the Arabic words. So to remember them, this is a trick. To remember all the huruf muqatta'a, remember this acronym. نص حكيم قطع له سر. The Arabs here know what this means basically. It's like I'm not going to translate it, but I'll save it for you guys when you do the program. The 14 separate letters in the glorious Quran appear in 14 forms, and they are as follows. I'm not going to cover them. You guys probably have come across them already. We've already done this in the past. Alif lam mim, alif lam mim sad, alif lam ra, alif lam mim ra, kaf ha ya ain sad, and so on. Now the next one. الوجود الواقع في الحروف المقطعة. The separate letters are divided into 4 groups according to the mad in them. So just remember this. This is basically the precursor to memorizing al-Jazariya. So this is actually talking about the syllabus that gets covered before we even cover the book. That's why the Sheikh is covering it really briefly. So he's just giving it as bullet points. But, you know, this basically, when you think about Tuhfat al-Atfal, that gets covered, it's 60 or so lines. This basically makes up 25% of the syllabus. Because what happens when you move into Jazariya and Ijazah, the Imam, mashallah, just makes a reference to what we've already done in the past. So here, let's have a look. Now remember, number 1, Alif has no mad. And as you probably figured out, listening to sheikhs and reciting, Alif never has a mad in the huruf muqatta'a context. Normally we make mad in it, that's connected and disconnected mad, but never in the huruf muqatta'a. So that's rule number 1. 2, the letters of Hayyun Tahur. Now remember this, because people are going to say, how do you know the mad's letters and the huruf muqatta'a are disconnected or disjointed letters? How do you know the ones that you extend versus the ones you don't extend? This is the second rule. The letters of Hayyun Tahur, if you remember this, each is pronounced as 2 letters. The second of them is a mad letter which belongs with the 2 counts. Let me think. مقدار حركتين. So for example, when you're reciting, we said Kaf. Kaf is long one. Kaf. But you don't say yeah. It doesn't make sense. You say yeah, ayn, sin. So does that make sense? Or for example, like Taha, you don't go Taha, you go Taha. You see what I mean? Everybody's all right so far?
Could you just explain it to the 2-letter part again, please?
So here, what the Sheikh, I think it's a mistranslation. Basically, the harakat of hayyun tahur, you only extend them naturally. You don't give them 4 or 6 harakat. So you go Taha, Yasin. Sin is the long one, but the ya and the Yasin is ya. You don't go Yasin. You see what I mean?
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
So that's what hayyun tahur means. If somebody asks you, what are the huruf muqatta'a that do not have a compulsory mad in them, then you say, oh yeah, hayyun tahur. And they're 2 harakat long. Number 3, the letters of sanaqussu lakum. Each is pronounced as, yeah, tfaddal.
Sorry for the interruption, Sheikh. There's just one other thing here is the number 2 here.
Yep.
Because they say, for example, the ha. There is when you say the letter ha, there is ha, so there is hamza at the end. Ha and ya, but when you say them in the Quran, when you pronounce them in the beginning of the surahs, you don't go ya, like say with number 3 here, we go sin, which is the full 3 letters of each letter. We only go with the first letter and then the mad, the harf al-mad after, like say ha, we don't say ha or ha or ya. I think that's what it means here. Number 2, it says على حرفين ثانيهما حرف مد. So only 2 letters without the third, hams at the end. I don't know. I think I'm confusing things.
Oh no, that's correct way you said it. So basically, it's like these letters, you just pronounce them naturally. It's like we don't elongate them 4 or 6 harakat as you would with sin or sad. So hayyun tahur, basically they have a natural mad. It's a natural elongation. So it's but no, what you said is correct, bro. Almost Muhammad. Alrighty. Now we're gonna start moving up now. We started off with the lowest ones. We're gonna start going up a notch. Number 3 here, we talked about the sanaqussu lakum. Each of these letters, I'm not going to get into the definition of the middle one being a mad letter. This is, I'm trying to keep it as concise as possible. Sanaqussu lakum, if any of these comes, now these get extended 6 harakat. Examples we said, Yasin. So yeah, we've covered earlier, yeah, doesn't get extended. Sin gets extended 6 harakat. Another example, sanaqussu lakum, noon. What does noon fall under? Noon is not hayyun tahur, it's sanaqussu lakum. So based on that rule, you go noon. So the reason why we say this is that if somebody stops you over and says, okay, what's the hukum of this letter? You can say, oh yeah, this is either. Or let's just say this letter. You say, kalimi mukhaffaf, harfi mukhaffaf, harfi mustaqal, whatever it is. And if it specifically asks you, how do you determine the length of the mad, then you can refer back to this. This is basically the most detailed guide. Number 4. Now, this is an interesting one. We talked about the compulsory mad, 6 harakat. We said the ones that don't have mad. The letter ayn is pronounced as 3 letters. 3 letters meaning if you write it down, it's ayanu. And now this is where the difference is happening. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of it. The ayn here specifically refers to the one found in Surah Maryam. Some people say the mad in the ayn 4 harakat. Some of them say 6 harakat. So here he's specifically saying, and this is where your knowledge comes in with the tariqas. We've covered this in the past. Counts according to the way of the Shatibiyyah. So 4 or 6 of tariqat Shatibiyyah. It follows the soft mad or mad lean. So that's the hukum of it. What I'm trying to say at the end of the day, obviously you've got different explanations whether you're doing it 4 or 6. My best answer, I'd prefer doing 6. It's easier for the count, and it's, you could say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of how to translate it in English. The preference, so to speak, for lack of a better word. Just before I move on, any questions about Ayn so far? Ayn is the only one that happens in one place in the Mus'haf that can be said 4 or 6 times, 4 or 6 harakat. Any questions so far? All good?
Alhamdulillah, all good.
Sweet. Let me just bring this up again. I think SubhanAllah's crashed on me. Perfect timing. Okay, we'll move on to the next page. Here we go. Now, attention. The reciter of the glorious Quran should read the names of the separate letters, not the letters themselves. For example, so here, what the Sheikh basically means, please don't do this. It happens with non-trained reciters. Don't read Alif Lam Mim as Alab. Here, you're trying to spell the letter. So as we've already given an example, we gave an example of Noon. Anybody would like to give the Kaf Haya Ain Sad a shot from Surah Maryam?
You mean reciting it? So,
Yeah, pretty much.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. كافها يا عين صاد.
So the Ain, how many harakat are you choosing to make mad of it?
6, just like the rest.
6. So between the Ain and the Sad is an idgham or ikhfa?
That's an ikhfa because of the sad, one of huruf al-ikhfa.
And what's the very last hukum of the Sad?
Last hukum of sad.
It's a very tricky question.
Right.
Qalqala.
Qalqala, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So you're recited as Allah is fine. Kaf ha ya ayn sad. So you see, and strictly here, I'm transitioning and I'm clearly illustrating the reciter, or the here, Sami', or the person listening, or the sheikh that's listening. I'm extending it 6 harakat, but I'm doing 2 harakat for the ikhfa. So if there's an idgham or ikhfa or anything else, you have to take that into account, which is exactly what point 2 says. The reciter should apply the rules of Tajweed to the separate letters in the glorious Quran so that he or she merges, idgham, conceals, ikhfa, makes qalqala, and makes the heavy from the light as follows. So basically, you're reading them, you're still applying ahkam to them, even though they're separated letters. You're just reading them like the rest of the Quran. Where are we? So basically, here's a summary on page 172.
And I never thought there'd be so many ahkam in the huruf al-muqatta'a.
Yeah, it looks pretty easy, yeah, because people are like, oh, it's a bunch of letters. But I was like, oh man, like subhanAllah, each letter's there for a reason, inshallah.
Allah, Jazakallah khair.
That was mine. So I'll just summarize what we said. So going back to the rules, Alif is the only one that doesn't have mad. That's done. The ones that are natural mad, mad tabi'i, are 2 harakat long. These are hayyun tahur. The ones that are mad lazim, they have to be extended for 6 harakat as sanaqussu lakum. And there's only one that has 2 ahkam. There could be 4 or 6. And that's the ayn. So any questions on this section before we move on? Perfect. I'll cover this really quickly, inshallah. Now, the presented sukoon. I don't like the name presented. I'll probably refer to it in the Arabic form. So here it's called as al-mad al-arid sukoon. I'll explain what presented means in a second. It is performed when a mad letter is followed by a sakin letter because of a presented sukoon due to stopping. So here, think of it this way. The Sheikh has 3 examples. Al-bayan, ta'malun, and nasta'in. When you look at the actual harakah in the Quran, in the black harakah, it's written in black ink. Al-bayana, ta'lamuna, nasta'inu. When the Shaykh recites, he's like, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ. That's how he recites. So let's take into account the harakah. If I ever put a sukoon, when I say nasta'in, in this case, that's what al-arid means. This is a specific case where I have the default case of the letter is to have a harakah, but I'm making taskeen of the letter because I'm stopping at it. For that, because the letter now is transformed into a sakin, not a mutaharrik, that has a specific set of mad rules. That's why when you hear the Shaykh recite, some of them say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, with 4 harakat. Some of them, they'll just say 2 harakat. So that is basically known as the mad al-arid al-sukoon. And it can, when you ever come across it, the Shaykh here, mashallah, has given these words are really nice examples, because al-bayan and ta'malun and nasta'in, they use the mad letters of alif, waw, ya. So when a sukoon is presented and you got one of those mad letters, then you can extend it 2 or 4 or 6 harakat. Yeah, that's basically mad al sukoon. Any questions so far? Any problems with mad al sukoon? Okay. Yeah.
Why is the Sheikh recommending 2 for hadar, 4 for tadweer, and 6 for tahqiq? Is that like from the sanad, or is that just like why is that?
Oof, that's actually a good point. Oh God, man. I'll give you an answer that is holistic, but I'm not going to try to jump into other sort of outside the scope of this course. This is probably even outside of my scope, but it's just a personal preference the Sheikh is giving. For example, here, I'll pick on New Zealand, because New Zealand is definitely a nice hotspot. Although it happens here, you know, if you're sitting down and I call them, you probably heard of Sheikh Ferrari. He's still around us. So there's some people that read or recite Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Malik Yawmiddin. Now, if I want to slow it down, I'll go Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Malik Yawmiddin. So let's just say I want to recite in Taraweeh. I'll probably try to use a shorter madleen to accommodate my speed. It doesn't make sense to break out and say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, because the mad is basically the length of the entire ayah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So also because the hadar, for instance, the pronunciation of a letter in hadar is going to be shorter than tahqiq. So the mudud should also reflect that because of the count. Yeah, okay, that makes sense though, yeah.
Yeah, now I know this might seem to be a straightforward, common sense recommendation from the Sheikh, but I think he's spelling it out for a reason based on experience. Because mashallah, when somebody such as Sheikh Dr. Ayman Sweed's got decades, we're talking, you know, most of his life for reciting the Quran, when somebody says something basic and he's at that advanced level compared to somebody such as myself, it means he has seen stuff. And I'll give you an example. And we see this happen a lot in Taraweeh. And this is where people like, and it happens a lot, I swear to God, it becomes a popularity voting contest. So what happens, somebody will recite, and you probably had these mashayikh. I'll give you an example. You recite as بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. It's like, oh, hang on, what happened here? It's like, oh, but I want to extend this. The rule says 2 or 4 or 6, Sheikh. I'm using the rukhsa that's given. So what happens in that case, we tell them, not only doesn't fit the common sense, you're just using it now to basically show off the type of mad that you can extend. And something the Sheikh explains in detail later on. We'll cover it in detail, but basically it's, I know this sounds really basic, but the first judging criteria we do is somebody, if he's more focused on his voice in Tajweed, is we seriously scrutinize him for that 2, 4, or 6. If you choose 2 and your citation is 2, you choose 2. If you choose 4, you choose 4. If you choose 6, you choose 6. I've seen some people and they get so carried away with it. They even like say alif lam mim, for example, or dalin. They'll skip these 2 harakat because he needs the extra 2 harakat so he can transition with his voice up and down. So the reason why we mention basic rules to, mashallah, people such as yourselves that know how to even pronounce mad correctly is to keep everybody in check. The rules are here for a reason. I hope that I got the message across, sir.
Yes, jazakallah khairan. Shukran jazilan.
Ajmain. So I'm not going to try to cover that section in detail, but yeah, 2, 4, or 6, choose the one that matches your speed. But, you know, just like how when you're driving a car, it doesn't make sense to be on a highway on, I don't know, let's just say 100 kilometers per hour, and you're like, you know what, I don't like this gear shift, I want to shift it down. The car itself is going to have problems with the clutch. Same thing with Tajweed. If you have a qari that's with an ijaza behind you, or God forbid, the 10 qira'at ijaza got qari, and you do that, man, you're definitely going to have somebody talking to you after salah. So just bear that in mind. So that's what the Sheikh is saying. He should continue with the same duration until he finishes his recitation. So if you choose 2, you stick with 2. You choose 4, you stick with 4. You choose 6, you stick with 6. I'll probably try to finish off here today because of the time, but I'll give you practical examples that we've actually seen. This thing is such a big deal that before we even start the competitions and the rules are given out, especially at international level, I'll give you Saudi Arabia as an example. They do mention that. They're saying if you're reading Shatibi, you're reading whatever, stick to 4 or 6 or whatever. If you have, supposedly, the most beautiful voice from all 60 or 80 nations competing amongst 160 competitors, and you go, well, let's just say Darlene is the obvious example. If you're reading ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, you obviously didn't choose the mad option. He's going to say 2 harakat. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ let's just say مُتَّقِينَ الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة مما رزقناهم ينفقون. Rather than getting a wow, you will definitely get penalized. Guaranteed 100%. And if you don't believe me, try it. Where do people get away with this? They get away with this in Taraweeh, unfortunately. It's going to happen, you know. So it is a big deal when a sheikh and a big muqri with 7 qira'at at least under his belt says, I will prosecute you if you're playing around with mad when you're supposed to stick to the rules, then take it seriously. Now, this is outside the scope of this book. Sheikh al-Tabba', Jazakallah khair, he's basically, mashallah, compiled a lot of research when it comes to this mad. Mashallah, you mentioned this quite nicely, Brother Musa. He said, is this to do with the isnad? At a technical level, probably even past my level, I've had his research, yes, it does play into the isnad. What do I mean by this? Mashallah, we've got templates and I've got tables where I've read of qira'at of Hafs, specifically for Hafs. This is research for Hafs only. The guys, based on your mad, can figure out your chain of narration. For example, they'll sit down, okay, why is Ibrahim reading from here? Tariq al-Fil, for example, had this. His Sheikh read in Tawassut. Why is he reading in Ishba'? Tawassut here means 4 harakat, Ishba' 6 harakat. There are actually people out there, mashallah, investigating the length of mad to do with the عرض للسكون. I know this sounds crazy, but mashallah, just as brother Muhammad pointed out, we're just talking letters here. And mashallah, the letters themselves in Arabic, just like how mashallah Allah revealed the Quran in Arabic, it's just a bunch of letters. Alif, Lam, Mim. But mashallah, just like how there's a science and hikmah behind Allah revealing it, there's also a science behind reciting them as the Sahaba did. So by you just coming into the art, saying I have a beautiful voice, I deserve to be heard, and not studying, with all due respect, brother, you're actually forcing yourself and you're making, let's say, a mockery of, this knowledge that we have here before us. It has to be set with a set of rules, and they're there for a reason. And if you try to deviate from the rules, even half, or as we know with the ikhtilas, the ulama are out there to get you. I know it sounds crazy, but Sheikh al-Daba', mashallah, published a really nice book of research looking just into the mad, subhanAllah. I was shocked. So yes, to answer your question, brother Musa, it can affect your isnad. So at the end of the day, if you're reading with a sheikh with say 2 harakat, and you're reading with 6 because somebody told, or 7 because somebody said you had a really beautiful voice, they can track you down and they can invalidate your license. Because in Egypt, mashallah, they actually have inspectors as well. I don't know if you guys know about it. So it's Jazakumullah khair. I think I talked enough enough about mad, bored out of you guys. Mashallah, it's a big chapter. Inshallah, we'll start getting a lot of practical examples and
there is the end of it, that is مد عرض للسكون, right? Is that
اللهم صل محمد ضالين واو وياء سكن وانفتح قريش. Sorry, I'm trying to remember the rules. I believe it's عرض السكون from memory. Yeah, that's what you said, right?
Yeah, عرض للسكون, yeah?
Yes. So you got the سكون on the ياء. واو وياء سكن وانفتح قبلهم الانحراف صحيحة, if I'm correct. Yeah, so it's that's the rule.
Okay. Yeah, so you have مد مثقل كلمي أو لا لازم مثقل كلمي for the ضالي, and then you have a مد عارض للسكون for the
sorry, let me correct myself. Now, where were we? What a ضالين. Let me bring up the Mus'haf, because the reason why this sounds, you guys might be going, what the heck is going on? Mashallah, Imam Kisa'i had a really good quote, and he said this specifically. Even he made a mistake once, and this is probably one of the 10 famous Qur'an, right? And then the Khalifa behind him corrected him and said, ربما يعطل الجواد. It's like at the end of the day, the steed can even trip up sometimes. ضالين. Now here, if you look at the Qasim, now I'm comparing the ضالين and how it's drawn to the book. Here it has to be out of the sukoon. So the trick is, now you might say, what's the difference between mad al-lin? Mad al-lin we'll cover next week. Mad al-lin, it's a waw and a ya and explicitly has a sukoon on top of it. So I'll give you an example. If you've ever stuck with mad al-lin and mad al-arid, because I tend to have this sometimes, is that Surah Quraysh from memory is all mad al-lin. لإلاف قريش إلاف من حيث الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت. So it's خوف. So these ones, the whole surah is madlin. Nasta'een, now you look at it in page 172, Nasta'een specifically doesn't have a sukoon on the ya. So from a Rasim perspective, I hope this helps you at least see it. Same thing with the Dalleen. That's the same logic I'm applying. Feel free, somebody correct me. I can probably double check for you for next week online, because I can't be teaching the wrong stuff. But I'm going with what you said. Yeah, definitely. Out of the sukoon.
Okay.
Just quickly, Sheikh, before you go, what's the difference between the ardi and the lean? Because they're both 2, 4, or 6 when you have a waw, ya, or hamza followed by a sukoon, right?
Yeah, now as you can see, mashallah, the presented sukoon, it's easier when you look at them side by side, like page 172 and 73. You know what? I'll just do it really quickly because it helps explain this one, and then we'll skip mad lean. So here, the main mad al-lean and mad al-arad al-sukoon, they're really similar. They're at the end of the surah. So the difference, as you can see, mad al-arad al-sukoon, it can happen in 3 letters. Al-bayan, ta'malun, and nasta'in. Amma, the soft mad, or mad al-lean, it can only happen with a waw and a ya that's a second. So it's al-arad al-sukoon, think of it this way. Al-arad al-sukoon, sukoon happens when you stop, which means at the end of the day, obviously it has a different case when you carry on. Al-bayan, ash-shamsu wal-qamru bihusban, you know, just carry on. You could probably say the same thing about mad al-lean, but it's just, I know this is a bit confusing, but just remember, it's like at the end of the day, from a rasim or a drawing perspective, mad, if you're looking at the mushaf and you're reciting, mad al-lean is always a waw and a ya, and it has a sukoon on top, guaranteed. Amma mad al-arad al-sukoon, you can, it's an alif, a waw, and a ya, and it never has a sukoon on it.
Alhamdulillah, no, it makes sense, especially if you're not stopping. Yeah, then there's a difference. So jazakallah khairan.
Ajmain.
Shukran jazeelan.
Islam. Any more questions, folks?
If tomorrow, if Akhi Muhammad is coming half an hour early, do I come half an hour early, or do we make another time, or is there someone before me, or how are we going to do that?
Well, to be honest, I think we'll probably start at the same time at the end of the day. I think we both, I think we covered all the rules. I thought I was gonna cover more today, but I think due to the lack of time, inshallah, we've covered all the ahkam. So I don't think Brother Muhammad missed anything. If you want, Muhammad, you could start at the normal time, inshallah, not a problem.
Jazakallah khair, yeah, no worries.
That's mine. So what's going to happen next week, we've covered, just to give you guys a heads up, we've covered al-arad, we've covered mad al-lean. I think that's basically it. So you guys, next week, be prepared, because it's going to be practical examples. So we're going to talk about the mistakes that happen in mad, and then we'll talk about the right of way. So basically what I want you to train for is the mad that you choose. It sounds really simple. It's only half a page out of the whole book for mad al-lean, and half a page for, like one whole page when you think about it, for mad al-lean and mad al-arad. But whatever one you choose is going to dictate how you practically apply mad for the whole Quran. Because mashallah, you know, when you look at it, oh yeah, that's pretty easy. It's half a page, should be the easiest spot. But the next 10 pages are going to be practical examples of how to apply that. You know, because you're going to be faced with issues where you're going to finish the surah, like a sama, for example. Should you read a sama normally, or should you extend it 4 harakat? You know, so this is going to be just practice that in your own time, inshallah. You guys know the definitions by now. So inshallah, that's going to be for the whole next lesson, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair for your efforts, sir, by the way.
Jazakallah khair. So tomorrow, inshallah, who's starting first? Just so I get my head around it.
Oh yeah, you're probably, what time do you normally start, bro? Sorry, I forgot.
Is that 3? Or 3 after 3 o'clock? Or?
I think it was 3:30, yeah.
3:30, so I'm starting at 3:30.
Yeah, so just before 3:30, then Brother Asra, then Brother Musa.
Khalas khair, inshallah. So At least I know what time I'm starting. So 3:30.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a problem. So take it easy, guys. If you have any questions, bring them tomorrow as well.
Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward you, Ustad, and barakallahu feek, all of you.
Ajma'in. Oh, I appreciate it. Get ready for next week, eh?
Inshallah.
يلا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك السلام عليكم
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله
ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Definitely be an interesting lesson. Ya Allah, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Sallallahu Rasulullah. Now, inshallah, we're going to continue with Mad. Hopefully, we'll try to cover quite a lot. Now, this is quite tricky because it'll imply that we still remember what we did from the last lesson. So we're just going to carry on as if we've kind of memorized the entire thing. Last time, I recall specifically, we stopped at the definitions. We were looking at the compulsory mad, and we said there was kalimi mukhaffaf and kalimi muthaqqal, and then harfi mukhaffaf and harfi muthaqqal. And everybody raised their hands up and said, what's going on? Am I correct?
My hands are still raised, Ustaz.
Yeah, because I was going to say it's the opposite, so it's good that you said it. Oh, so the question is, has anybody had a chance to look at what's the difference between kalimi mukhaffaf and muthaqqal or harfi mukhaffaf and muthaqqal, or is it just freaking the hell out of you?
No, I haven't haven't had a chance. But is it are we talking about the light and the heavy?
Yeah, so basically here, because obviously there's different classifications of mad. We need to understand the different classifications so that when we move on to the next part of the chapter is how do we give the right of way for the one that has a higher priority. So we're talking about the compulsory mad, which is definitely the one that has to be done. And the Imam here has divided them, or the muqri, an accurate word, is divided them into two different, well, specifically 4 categories. So what's the difference? I mean, is everybody else on the same page, or are we? We've got any questions about the definitions?
So we're on page 168.
Yep. So
yep,
all good. We've got all good, Saeed and Nasar. Sorry, Saeed, I can't hear your mic.
Yeah. I'm on the same page, 168.
Perfect. So anybody would like to guess what's the difference between kalimi and harfi mad in the compulsory setting? Think of the compulsory mads that you firstly come across from your experience and try to guess. So what's kalimi and harfi?
Kalami is when it's a word in the Quran, which is like, I'm guessing just all of them. And then harfi is the huruf al-muqatta'at at the beginning of the surah.
Yeah, so basically, here when the Imam talks about harfi, or the compulsory mad that's harfi, it means the compulsory mad that's in the ahruf. An example of this you probably have is alif lam mim. That's one. Kalimi means it's compulsory mad in a word. And here we have the example of a sakha and al-ad. And as we said, compulsory mad has to be 6 harakat. Now this is where it gets quite tricky. And I'm not really going to give you an exam to do them now. It's actually better to do on pen and paper. I'll probably send something in the group chat so you guys can have a look at it. So the question is, how do you actually, what's mukhaffaf and muthaqqal? Why is there a light and a heavy compulsory mad? Because people will say, well, I thought compulsory mad was 6 harakat. What's heavy 6 harakat mad and light 6 harakat mad?
Is it referring to the letters involved in the mid? Sad and kha are heavy, and alif and lam not heavy?
Good guess, but it's not that. That's a good guess. So here, anybody else would like to take another guess? What's a heavy mad versus a light mad?
I think it's depending on the letter as well, the heavy letters and the light letters as well. Like in the example of ta, sim, mim means ta is a heavy letter, and ha mim it's a light letter.
Oh, really close. Now, hamim, yes, that would be technically classified as kalimi harfi mukhaffaf. But the thing is, it's to do with the letters. You guys were quite close, but not from the sense that we've trained on in the past. Now, in the past, when we say heavy and light, just think of it this way. In Arabic, that's why Tajweed gets taught in Arabic. We talk about muraqqaq and mufakham. So that means heavy and light letters. But in Mad, we say mukhaffaf and muthaqqal. So you see that fundamentally, the root words are different. So that's why you can't translate the ahkam of tajweed of the heavy and the light letters into Mad. You see where I'm coming from? So I'll give you an example of what's a heavy Mad and what's a light Mad. Although you did mention one correctly, but I can't give you the points for guessing it. Like say ta, sim, mim. That's regarded as a heavy one. I'll give you an example now between a heavy and a light one. Hamim, noon, sad. So all these are 6 harakat. We call these easy, light 6 harakat. Mad. Sorry, I'm trying to do Arabic and English at the same time. Harfi mukhaffaf. Light mad in a harf or a letter. Now I'm going to give an example of a heavy one. So I'll send it in the group chat. Let's start with the most obvious one in Surah Al-Baqarah. Alif, Lam, Mim. Would anybody take a guess as to why that might, just say it in your head, and would anybody would like to take a guess as to why that's heavy? Even though a single letter, well, it's mostly light and easy to say. It's not like kaf, haya, ayn, sad, for example.
Is it because there is more than one mad lazim in those huruf?
Ooh, close. I want you to break down the types of mad though. Now you guys said you wanted to do a revision class. This is definitely in relation to something we covered 2 weeks ago, I think. Maybe 2 weeks ago.
Is that because of the tashdid? Because lam, mim.
Yes, Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, Brother Muhammad got the point here. So I'll illustrate exactly how we get mufakham, muthaqqal and mukhaffaf. So to do this, I'm not going to try to cover the rules in detail. It's going to take us maybe half an hour because I already have notes on this thing. But I'm just going to provide a simplistic answer as possible so we can cover as much of the book as we can. The best thing to do, I sent it in the group chat. Alif Lam Mim is 3 letters. My Sheikh Muhammad Khair, had a really good example. He said, break down each letter into its Arabic spelling. So Alif, if I tell you write down Alif, spell it for me. Alif is spelled in 3 letters. Alif, Lam, Fa. Spell Lam. Rather than writing the letter Lam, you're writing Lam, Alif, Mad. Meme. Third letter is meme. So to write down meme, to spell meme, transliterally in English, write meme, yeah, meme. Okay, does everybody see the example I sent in the group chat? We're all on the same page? Sorry, I think the mic